courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. From The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. Halloween is this weekend, and so for physical therapy today, my mom got me a Halloween costume for my knee. Pretty certain it's a dog costume, but it's a shark in case you can't tell. So this past week was Halloween, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about fears. I think there are different kinds of fear, like the way that I am afraid of clowns is not the same way that I'm afraid of the unknown, for example. We have this weird thing about fear, like we don't like feeling afraid, but around Halloween we do all sorts of things because we want to feel fear. For example, this weekend my friend Gracie came over and we watched Silence of the Lambs. So Gracie, what are we watching?
Silence of the Lambs.
How is it?
It's scary.
It was sufficiently horrifying and disturbing, but we made it all the way through it, which I haven't done before, so that's something. I think we like Halloween because it gives us a chance to face our fears without actually having to feel afraid because there's no real threat or danger. But I do think that we can kind of divide our fears up into different categories. I think there are the things that we're afraid of because they creep us out, and there are things that we're afraid of because we can't explain them. I think the cool thing is that fear is really a psychological thing. There are some fears that are kind of like innate or instinctual. Things that have evolved into fears over time because they were things that made sense to be afraid of if you were an early human and you wanted to survive. Things like being afraid of heights, or being afraid of the dark, or being afraid of large animals or spiders. Other fears are learned fears. They've been conditioned, sort of. Things like being afraid of clowns, or being afraid of roller coasters, or being afraid of spiders, being afraid of scary movies. These are things that we learn during our lifetime, and the cool thing is that if you can learn to be afraid of something, you can also learn not to be afraid of something by retraining your brain. It's kind of like in Divergent when they go through those fear simulations and are able to overcome their fears to get out of the simulation. But it actually can happen in real life. You can start to condition yourself not to be afraid of something. And yeah, there are healthy, legitimate fears. And there are also fears that can keep us from living life to its fullest. Being afraid of rejection, being afraid of change, being afraid of going new places or traveling or getting on an airplane. There are things that hold us back. Let's get one thing straight. You do not have to be fearless to be brave. I think we have this misconception that in order to be brave, you can't be afraid of anything ever. But that's not true. Being brave is acknowledging and admitting that you're afraid of something, but facing it anyways. That's what real courage is. Not a reckless abandon, not immortal fearlessness and courage, but understanding that you can overcome your fears and that you're bigger than those fears. It is okay to be afraid. It's not something to be ashamed of, and it's something that should be okay to talk about. I'm afraid of a lot of things. I am afraid of clowns. I am afraid of elevators. I am afraid of the dark. I'm afraid that I won't be able to bend my knee far enough. I'm afraid of letting people down. I'm afraid of not being good enough. I am afraid that I won't be able to walk normally again. I'm afraid that my knee will never really feel like my own, and I'm afraid of injuring my other knee or other parts of my body. I'm afraid of losing people that I care about. I am afraid of my friends forgetting about me. I'm afraid that all of my friends at college will be moving on in their lives and that I won't fit into their lives anymore. I'm afraid of always being in pain. I am afraid of never really finding my purpose. I'm afraid of cavities and root canals. I've never had them, but they sound painful. I'm afraid of global warming. I'm afraid of being lonely. And I'm afraid of the unknown. I think a lot of people are. It's easy to be afraid of something that you don't understand or can't explain. And I think that kind of exemplifies many of the fears that I have of not making it to college, of going to college but having it not be everything that I want it to be, of the future, of the possibility that everything's not going to be awesome and the possibility that everything is awesome. When we don't know what to expect, it's easy to be afraid. We worry about what's going to happen next. We don't like not being in control. And it's understandable to be afraid of all of those things. But I hope that you're never afraid of living. I hope that you're never afraid of asking for help or talking. We all have fears, and that's a fact. But it's also a fact that you are in control of your fears. Maybe there are some things that you're always going to be afraid of, but you don't have to let those fears control you. It's the other way around. It might feel like they're crippling and suffocating and that they have control over you, but you can change that. You can face those fears in small steps. I can't avoid elevators for my entire life, especially now since taking the stairs isn't really an option, and most places don't have escalators unless they're an airport or a shopping mall. And while I still don't particularly like riding in elevators, still get on them. I'm not going to let an elevator stop me from living my life and going to the places that I need to go. So don't let your fears hold you back. That's what being brave is all about. It's about saying that you're afraid of something and that fear is not bigger than you. Maybe that's why it is fun to be spooked around Halloween. Because maybe poking fun at our fears and dressing up as them and parading around in them helps us to feel that they're a little less scary. Makes them a little bit smaller. It can seem like this big, looming, overpowering monster, but they're not. They're all in our head. And if they're a part of us, there's something that we can change. There's something that we can control. So do something today that scares you. Do something that you've been wanting to do but been afraid to, whether that's calling somebody you've been meaning to talk to, whether that's apologizing or forgiving, whether that's applying to that school you've been really thinking about, or riding in an elevator. I don't know. Do something brave and be proud of yourself for it. Congratulate yourself on it. So good luck with your scary thing today, and as always, until next time.